All right, let's go ahead and bring in our next guest here, if you will. He is the senior political editor at Forbes.com, co-host of Steele and Unger on Sirius XM POTUS 124, weeknights from 6 to 9 Eastern, and one half of our weekly political animal pairing on the Hardline here on Newsmax. We welcome Rick Ungar back to the fray.
I'm ready. I thought I was coming on now.
No, he will be coming on just a moment, joined by the syndicated columnist, veteran economist, professor of business at the University of Maryland, Peter Morici. Don't worry about it, Peter. We see you sitting there.
I didn't know I was live. Excuse me.
With a bow tie like that, we'd have to bring you on.
You're going to get involved in this. That's why we bring you in here. Don't sweat it. Peter, let me come to you. It's the first time that we're getting a chance to talk to you here this evening. Your reaction to what we have seen thus far.
Well, I think it's a big night for Trump, doing so well in Mississippi. This notion that if you have a two-horse race, somehow or other Cruz can beat him. Well, remember, the Deep South, other than Texas, was supposed to be where Cruz could demonstrate that he could win outside of Texas. And if Trump can win 50% of the vote against a field of four, that tells me that I'm having a little bit of doubt about some of the stuff that Dick is saying. My feeling is that Trump is showing that he is really very viable. And even if Kasich and Rubio clear out, he might be able to beat Cruz one-on-one. And I think that's very, very important.
All right, now hang on. Before I bring you in, Rick, I'm going to let you answer to that, Dick, because Peter thinks that maybe there's some flaw in your argument.
Well, we don't have to speculate. When ABC News does a national poll and it's 54-40, that's pretty convincing. And you have to know that if that's the race, the whole establishment gangs up on Trump. Everybody comes down on him like a ton of bricks. And I think that he's not going to be able to do that. Trump has had enormous difficulty winning 50% of the vote of anything, anywhere. He's doing it in Mississippi now, the most southern of the southern states, after Kasich and Rubio have declined. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to do that. And the irony of it is, he wouldn't have this problem if he didn't beat Rubio.
All right, one sec. Peter, go ahead. Rick, don't worry, I'm going to get to you in a second, but Peter's got a question. Go ahead, Peter.
How effectively do you think Cruz is going to appeal in the North? Given his background, given his demeanor, his presentation, he kind of reminds me of sort of a southern version of Christie, that his appeal is highly regional. I have a lot of trouble seeing people across the northern tier warming up to this guy, just the nature of his personality.
I think it's a good point.
Yeah. Might be. He carried Maine, but might be. We need to see. We'll have a pretty good fix on this in the next few days, because he has to run in Illinois and in Ohio, and we'll see how he does there.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in Rick Ungar, who has been patiently waiting, sitting in New York. Rick, I know, just chomping at the bit, as a matter of fact, to talk about the left, but we're going to hold you here for the moment. We're going to stay on the right here. Are you surprised at all that Donald Trump comes away with those big wins in Mississippi and Michigan?
No, I'm not. And I got to say, Dick Morris is on his game tonight. He hasn't said anything that I disagree with. I think it's been a great
All right, we got to shut this show down right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. We have to leave the broadcast at this moment.
Dick and I are going to do it one-on-one
tonight.
Forget what I said.
He is rocking it tonight.
But here's another thing, though, Rick, to get to it.
But let me say one thing. I'll tell you what I think is the most significant thing I've seen tonight so far, because I'm still waiting to see what happens in Wayne County with respect to Hillary and Bernie Sanders. The Mississippi race. You know, there is no way that Ted Cruz can pretend any longer that he can win evangelicals. Mississippi is one of the most evangelical states in the nation. I think that at the exit poll I saw, 70% of the voters there on the Republican side identified themselves as such, and Trump walks away with it. This has probably been the biggest surprise to me. That said, I think Dick is actually onto something with Ted Cruz, and I think to rule him out at this point is a mistake. Northern states are very funny. He wins Maine, he probably wouldn't win New York. It just depends. Watch what happens as we make our way through the Rust Belt now over the next 1-2 weeks and see what Cruz does.
Let's go ahead and bring that up, because he brings up the Rust Belt again, and that's where we are right now. Heavy union territory that we're talking about here right now, which is traditionally Democratic.
Republican primary.
Exactly. But we're still looking at that Rust Belt area. Do you think that Trump has that staying power and has those people? Let's face it, these are people who want jobs, they want better pay, but you still have the powers of the unions. Does he have enough to grab them?
I think that there is a credibility gap emerging with Trump. In the past, the number one adjective for him was he tells it like it is. In other words, when you looked at South Carolina, those who thought he told it like it is voted for Trump. Represents my values, voted for Cruz. Has the best chance of winning, they voted for Rubio. But now in the exit polls tonight, a majority in Michigan of Republican voters say they do not trust Donald Trump. With the Trump University and his flip-flops on a bunch of issues, he's taking on some water. And while the establishment may not be able to elect Rubio over him, it can do a very good job of messing Donald Trump up.
I think you bring up a very good point here with a lot of these businesses here. Peter, knowing your economic background, if you will, and your business background, I want to bring this into you. Donald Trump holds his press conference tonight. He has on the stage Trump champagne, Trump magazines, Trump steaks. He has pretty much everything there that we have been talking about. He went off almost on 20 minutes attacking those people who attacked him over these businesses and some of his losses as well. What Dick here is saying, though, is right. In this Rust Belt area here, we have people who are worried about jobs, economy, money in their pocket right now. But it seems as if all these attacks that have been launched at Trump about his businesses have done absolutely nothing. Shouldn't it make some kind of a difference to the people here who are worried about their businesses and their paychecks?
I think it does make a difference. It's distracted Trump. Tonight was an opportunity for him to start to shift his campaign in the direction he needs to go in, not just for the primaries, but for the general election. You know, if he can't win the presidency by winning places like Virginia, Nevada, and so forth, then he has to basically pull a Reagan victory, and that is win through the Rust Belt. He should have been using this opportunity of the victory in Mississippi to start to address those people. And he should have been talking about the trade with China, the trade policy issue. Those issues rhyme well up there. And he didn't talk about those things, and that was a mistake. And this is the tragic flaw in Donald Trump. They're all egotistical. But he's the most egotistical of all, except maybe Hillary Clinton. He really talked too much about himself and not about the needs of those people, and this was his opportunity to do that.
But Peter, I got to interrupt you for a second here because you're exactly right on what you're saying. However, Peter, the American voters who like Donald Trump don't care about it when he talks about trade. They like this. They enjoy this. They eat this up every time he goes off and talks about these things. And it's one of the things that makes him so popular. Why would he change now when it's got him to the point of being on the cusp of becoming a Republican nominee?
Not all
because now he's going to be
American public.
campaigning in the Rust Belt, and that's what matters. That's where he has to win the general election. You know, going through those states, those issues rhyme a little better than they do in other places. And I think he would have done well to emphasize them. You know, when you go into areas that once had steel mills, that once had auto part plants and so forth, they are very angry about China. And I think that would have worked better there.
All right. Well, Rick, let me bring you in on this because let's go from that anger about China. Again, it basically dovetails into the same conversation because every single time Donald Trump takes to the podium, he talks about China. We're angry. We're going to go after them. So doesn't that mean he is speaking their language, what these people in the Rust Belt might want to hear? Why change it?
I got it. I do think
that's.
Hang on, Peter. Let me let Rick go ahead.
I'm having a freakish night because now I got to agree with Peter Morici. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. Trump totally miscalculated tonight. Peter is right. Trump absolutely missed an opportunity. Look, I know these people. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, right in the heart of that steel company. I worked in the steel mills every summer that I went through college. And Peter's right. They did not want to see Trump sit there and take us on a travelogue through his failed businesses, defending each one of them. What a waste of 20 minutes. He should have been talking about what he's going to do to bring jobs to those places. Instead, he's telling you about Trump champagne and Trump wines. I mean, I just sat there with my mouth open. I was absolutely stunned. He does not understand the people who gave him their vote tonight in Michigan. If the people in Ohio were watching that, and I suspect they were, he may find it much tougher sledding than he thought it was going to be in Ohio. That does not play with them.
I'll turn to the left momentarily. You have a thought on that?
Well, yeah, first on the Rust Belt, look at how well Cruz is now emerging in Michigan. He's 1 point behind Kasich. The trend line has been he'll probably finish second, and he'll probably finish within about 10 points of Trump. And that's pretty good performance in the Rust Belt for now, and he didn't spend any real money in Michigan. In terms of the Rust Belt, he can run against Donald Trump as a billionaire. He can say, I represent the small people. One of the big fault lines in the Republican Party is the small businessman versus Wall Street. Cruz is the only candidate who has said he would not lift a finger to bail out a failing bank. And Trump supported TARP and he opposed it. And I think that he may take a page from Bernie Sanders. And if you listen to Cruz in the future, you'll be wondering if he has gray hair or not.
All right, now let's finally see if we can bring Rick Ungar to where he wants to discuss certainly the left, because we discussed a little bit about what happened in Michigan a moment ago. Hillary Clinton wins big in Mississippi, but Rick, big trouble in Michigan where we're still waiting. It is still literally too close to call here. Why did she fail?
Well, that's a dramatic statement that she's failed. Wayne County is a huge percentage of the vote, and Wayne County has a long and well-established record of being incredibly late getting in the results. Wayne County is where Detroit is. So my suspicion is, I don't know how to prognosticate this, but I have a funny feeling Hillary will probably squeak out a win in Michigan. Really? Certainly closer than people expected, and it's a fair question to ask. What happened to the union folks? What happened with the African American community? A lot of questions there, but I don't think she's failed yet. I think it may turn out to be a bit different.
But should she have not done better, Rick? I think that's the main point here. People would think with the history that she has, the history that her husband has there, you put that all together, people thought that she would certainly do a whole lot better.
I agree with Rick.
I mean, the polls, I think, had it a little bit higher. But, again, you have to wait and see. Listen, Bernie Sanders pops out and surprises you in some of these places. He also went pretty heavy on the advertising there, and it is possible that there may have been some annoyance over Hillary's technically correct answer or, her point when she said that Bernie voted against the auto bailout. That was technically right, but not completely true. If that word got out there, that may have annoyed some union workers.
And she certainly didn't make any friends by not coming right out and saying she wouldn't get rid of the head of the EPA after all that happened in Flint, Michigan with the debate that was sitting there. 60 seconds.
Okay, politically incorrect time, all right?
Go ahead.
In a lot of states, the African American counties, particularly in Democratic primaries, submit their votes late. So they know how many votes they have to make up to get their person elected. And it has happened, believe me or not. Lyndon Johnson wouldn't be a senator if that phenomenon didn't happen. I'll bet that by the time this is over, Hillary carries Michigan by 10 or more.
Which would be an amazing cut of what we're seeing right here, because we're seeing 50
Actually, no,
to
it
48.
wouldn't. Dick understands the state. It would not be amazing.
80% of the black vote and not win Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Gentlemen, I just want to go ahead and check. We were scheduled to take a break. Are we taking a break or are we staying here? We are taking the break. Okay, we got to check. We got to check in because everything is moving at a high rate of speed here right now. So we just have to make sure that everybody is on set. Are you sticking around, or are you? You're leaving. No, okay, you're leaving.
I'm leaving. Okay.
You're leaving. No, we just had to make sure. That's all, because you can stay as long as you'd like, my friend.
One final thought.
Go ahead.
Wait for Idaho. 20 delegates in Idaho. 56 in Michigan.
Okay.
I'll bet that when you take Michigan and Idaho, Cruz and Trump have the same number of delegates. They win.
All right. Pleasure to see you again. Rick Ungar and Peter Morici, stick around. You're going to return later on this hour. Stay tuned. More to come on this election night special, because we have a tight race in Michigan still to call. Idaho is coming up, and Donald Trump is celebrating. Stay tuned right here on Newsmax for America's Vote 2016.